Oh, it certainly is. And even though this is a subject that I've, spent quite a bit of time working on, even I was shocked when I looked at the numbers set out like that to see that it is such a high percentage. And, there's so often this message, oh, short-term lets, that's just people house sharing. This isn't about houses going into the short-term market, but it's very, very clear 7 and 10 is a huge number. And even if that's the upper limit, because I obviously don't know the methodology that was used, if you wanted to take a more conservative view and knock a few hundred off the number just to avoid including anything that might be miscategorized, you're still talking at a little over 1,000 homes in Clare, in a county where there's about 1,300 people on the social housing waiting list.
Mhm. And
So it is a
from
cause for
Threshold's
concern.
point of view, the main concern is that these are all most likely dwellings that could be homes, could be long-term residential units.
Yeah, we would certainly assume that the majority of those could be used for by long-term, whether it's renters or people who are looking to buy the home. Now, it may not be possible to match every single one up with somebody. Depends what people's preferences are. We, understand that Clare, has a large rural area, that the Western Seaboard would, have a lot of tourism, but yeah, this is why we need the short-term register. This is why we need the planning oversight to make sure that homes are being put to their best and most effective use for communities around the country.
Do you have any sympathy with the operators of these units? Obviously, we've heard quite a bit over the years about the shortages of tourism accommodation in County Clare, which is, as you say, a very tourism dependent economy, and we're seeing a
Mm,
scarcity of
mm,
hotel beds in the county. So, is this a natural result of
mm.
that?
And it is a difficult balance to strike, I imagine, in those quite areas, like as you say, that are quite where the economy is quite dependent on tourism. And so this is again where it comes back to planning about local authorities having those frameworks in place, being able to project out what is the housing need in our area. What is the level of tourism in our area, and how many, hotel rooms do we need? And certainly, if someone decides to take what is a long-term home and put it over into short-term uh, holiday usage, yes, they're meeting a need, but they're also making an awful lot more money. They could just as easily leave it as a long-term let and still make money on it. So it doesn't necessarily have to go over. Let the hotels, let the traditional bed and breakfasts and so on and so forth provide the tourist accommodation.
Just finally, Anne Marie, these stats are also showing us that the number of Airbnbs, or indeed short-term lets more broadly in Clare, have risen by
Mm,
15% since
mm,
October 2022 to 2040, up from
mm.
1,770. Would you imagine that with the short-term letting bill in place that we'll see a different trend in a few years' time?
Well, it'll all come down to, I guess, the planning rules that accompany the bill to regulate short-term lets. And so we're still waiting to see the details of the National Planning Statement. Certainly, from what's been said so far, it's hard to see whether it will impact the short-term holiday lets that are currently in operation. But I'd hope to see that it will avoid in ongoing increases like that year on year. And that's where it will come back to the local authority, each local authority, to look at the need in their area and balance that need for homes against the tourist economy. But it really will come down to what's set out in that national planning statement.